Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for the team and the CANactions international team for allowing us to see where we match, and where's us place with the rest of the world. So my presentation is on architectural. Is architectural. All right. So a lot of our today's presentations are on urbanism, but this is my internal challenge. So after meaty and information, we wish to divert your attention to architectural information. So there will be 2 more lectures that are very interesting for me. I will start fast because our next 2 presenters are very, very interesting ones. So today we shall discuss such interesting elements that are when we're discussing morality and issues that are related to whether or not things allowed or not allowed and what is allowable. So the next project is ZOTOV&CO in Dnipro River. And so when one of the developers have asked me to design a project, so my initial response was, no, I don't want to do it. So the first challenge to this duality that we face when you constantly think, okay, this is nature in the city, and the city is opposing this nature. And so our answer to what can be done or has to be done here, we need to create something that will enable for symbiosis. And so the global trends, oblong trends, and the spot. So the spot is in between the city and the nature. So it's a northern part of Kiev city, the global trends. So let me tell you about this. It's natural that before we start with any subject, with any project, you sort of look around and look at what is happening. So our processes, Ukrainian processes, Kiev processes, and how is it related to the rest of the civilized world. I think you understand this. This is all about the healthy lifestyle. Let me go back to it for a second. So you start with your lifestyle. So my client did not he did not set a specific program saying, okay, we need so many residential areas, so many office areas. Well, people just know that they have 5 hectares of land, very responsible use has to be applied. This is an IT and sort of clients, and very progressive, knowing that they will be very demanding, and so they want to make this commercial success. So many of you, these are the people who are aiming at a healthy lifestyle. So what is it? This is it's another wave. So if you have ever tracked it over the last 100 years, so there's waves of socializing. So when you have social values overshadowing your personal values. So this is not the first time this is happening. We had 1920s with their with common wives, Red Terror, and then 50s and 60s was the next wave, neo-modernism, with Switzerland, as much as I understand. They in 1980s they have survived this wave, and so here you talk about sharing the community, the cohabitation, and Ramadas. It's a reaction to this challenge. So I have researched this historical experience, and just in order to avoid some mistakes. So there's Zurich, they have great examples when people show, many of you have heard about this, that the way that you can both take and give, and that is helping people to get through life easier. So we have mentioned that about 10% of functions are shared. So this was researched. Yeah, I'm not going to go into detail. This is a very important part of our presentation. We have studied the functional program of what this object should be. Let me tell you about several challenges. For instance, zoning or no zoning versus no zoning. You know that one of the trends of today is the mixed zoning, and no zoning is currently is the current day message. Or so no zoning is absolutely bad, because at 4 a.m. you may find some noises that are not really helping you. So we're talking about balance here. So key of context, of course, we are not able to find any particular construction that is similar to this. I'm showing you only the most important frames of this presentation. The river, some of you have actually been able to come here via Dnieper River. Not many people in Kiev know that this river is still out there, and Dnieper is everything. Dnieper is it's a place for living, transportation, route, and also recreation and work. This is absolutely undervalued resource, so we also emphasize again that Dnieper is everything for Kiev. So this slide shows that this red line actually delineates, even from transportation standpoint, that Dnieper can serve as a transportation route. So Obolon context, the district context, this territory is many times is flooded. So you see that right here next to us there's a yacht club, and can be integrated into our program. We have been able to see that neither one of the schools or kindergartens they're very overloaded. And Obolon, as many other places of Ukrainian cities, they overloaded with commercial buildings, and they have no kindergartens or schools, so we need to build our own. So this is general morphology and how it looks. So there's nothing out there. So I'm not going to talk about mobility any further. I will tell you about this several words. So you probably know how important it is for civilized territories to have mobility for bicycles and pedestrians. So this is the way situation is changing in European cities for the better. And this is Kiev city story. And so 25 years later, only 5 after our independence, about 5% growth of bicycle mobility. So this is actual situation on connectedness. So by Chehirlo, for pedestrian walks, for bicycling, and for transportation. We connect Herodnipra metro station with a shuttle bus with our particular plot of land right here. So this last last line, this is under the ground. Well, I will tell you more about that. So it's important to know that the helicopter in Kiev can fly only above the Dnieper River. you don't see any helicopter activities, but this is possible actually, and so this can be used. So we have paid attention to conditions of the river. It has to be purified. It's not in the best condition, but slowly we're moving toward design. And so you see good examples that we picked. They're a little bit different from what is used for Dnieper River banks and what we're familiar with. Even Avalon, those of you who know what is actually made over the period of Soviet Union time, that's totally built by concrete. And so right now, this plot of land looks something like this, with great water and vegetation. And so there are different ways to purify water. There's biological, there's mechanical, and of course, there's also social involvement and social impact, which is very important. Before we had a project, I have no idea about the authors, but this is a quote from this project. So the quote, this is Hirlo. From here on, people suggested that to connect this peninsula with the rest of the city to create this circulation. So, but the zoning and the activity decline has to happen like this. And so the fact that human activity is minimal here, I believe this will allow for a continuation of natural activity, and we'll be able to preserve it. So even this bridge that is it looks like utopia here. So we have analyzed different types of activities that are possible here. None of these are very aggressive. None of these behaviors will be high impact on the natural environment. So these are different examples of how can we beautify and develop the land. All of them are very mild in their impact. And so our task would be to develop this particular plot of land, but also to make sure we have plans for the future. So with the previous diagram, the activity decline goes, for instance, this is stadium, this is yoga, this is some beaches. We leave that, and the further we go into the stadium, the more there will be of a natural side and less of a human activity side. All of these images that I posted here, some of the images are ours. So we are somewhere over here. This is that long building. It's hidden in the vegetation. So now let's move to the land plot. Without my comments, you probably understand what the desire of any client is. So I think Kiev has going through these mania of building high. So you build high, and then you talk about high rises you build. So how do we prevent that? So you probably know all these wonderful examples of high rises. For Kiev city, it looks something like this. They can even be compared by height, but they are fat. They're no longer skyscrapers. They're sort of Ukrainian chubby skyscrapers. Our task from very beginning was to find a solution, very technical solution, and a symbiosis between the desires of the developer and the client to make this commercial success, and then to keep the initial condition. So we wanted to bid This is Apple headquarters. So, and also we work on criteria that prove advantages of low rises versus high rises. You see better integration, better safety, better logistics, apparently, when everything is on one platform. The, better availability of services. And I also say that it's even cheaper. So based on world best practices, we can tell you that it is cheaper. So it's also on independence. So for townhouse format, it can be one apartment. At the same time, if you desire some partnership, cooperation, proximity, it's easier than to just climb another floor. So it's a higher amount of terraces and it's higher density as well. This is a quote from the previous book, from the previous year, from Jan Gale, when you see that an individual communicates better with the context and the social context. And going back to architecture. So we ask ourselves, vertical or horizontal? What shall we do? Do we need the skyscraper? Yes, I think we do, but we will put it horizontally. So how do we arrive at this conclusion? So now everything you see, we have not, so this is due north, this absolutely correct. So without moving, so we can build a 39 meters long, a 39 meters wide building and 700 long building. So of course it's reminiscent with the megastructures from MA. So the structure is absolutely versatile with pitch 8.4 by 7.8 meters. So we make it into a very mixable and very flexible. And so, so any function, both retail and possibly everything outside of the big events like this one. But it's very, very adaptable. And then we navigate. Let me go step by step. So there's steps. So if you look at the cross section, there's these are elevators, those black dots. So you can drive underground, and all of the logistics and transportation will happen underground. So on this line, from these two stops, it's very convenient to travel 350 meters. It's according to European convenience standards. It's very easy to do, so you have even taxi routes. So you can approach these spots with private transportation vehicles, and you have a separate transportation by bicycles also under the ground. So what's important is not only a delivery, but we also need to get rid of the waste, so the waste disposal. Please pay a lot of attention to this issue, because it shall influence the quality of living that you suggest by your product. So it's a quite high building, so 4.5 meters. So another half store can be created we can adopt it for technical car parking and bicycle parking. So right about the technical corridors, you have engineering, communication shafts there. They're not very high. I'll tell you about the height. As we declare that we come in with a minimum intervention, these pedestrian walks create, move us to create at least several breaks. And so those partitions will create areas like squares, and there's another public square in the beginning. So zoning between public and private, this is the way it happens. So as we move in from civilization to the nature, it happens only from one side. So everything public is on the north, everything private is on the south. Excuse me. So what's important is that we have a mixed use and zoning is soft. However, what we have is the question is what's inside. So this is the way it happens. So you take everything from the client, and then when he's not giving you information, so you try to fill in the gap. So we have taken the statistics in Europe that about 70% of European real estate is residential, and the 25% is the rest. So everything that is outside is also zoned accordingly. So zoning is applied accordingly. So as you may see, there are no fences, barriers that we create. So this is a view of one of the squares, one of the areas. So with every presentation we have this spiral. So the essence of the spiral is that as opposed to traditional layout, when you have client, you have his task come back in several months, I will give you the perfect result and you will build according to it. It is not the way it works. So important projects, they move in several iterations, rethinking whatever was happening before, and then answering the challenges that were present before. So you provide for flexible development of the final result. So I believe this was mentioned several times today. So why we're different from civilized countries and practices is that we do not have long-lasting projects. So we you use steel, and then you leave the country, and then you go to other country to live. So that's why there are many new businessmen. There are people who are younger, and they have 20 more years to live here. So it's a good sign for qualitative changes for the city. Finally, you see how this is transposed into 3D. So we have lifted to 12-meter height. Why 12? It's very much like old city, Podil. Construction is 10 to 12 meters high. This is the way it historically, so excluding again the monstrous buildings on Podil. But that's the way it works. So it's important that the trees that are growing right outside are about the same height. So we will somewhat be hiding behind those trees, as opposed to not building. So a little diagram on daylight and its use. So on the sides, we can create enough light penetration. So you have western light and eastern lights, so low sun rays of sun will penetrate. But this is like 40 meters wide, almost. So definitely we have created another gap from the inside, the way it should be. The questions, answers may vary. So what's important is the format, the topology of the residential areas. This the super loft. So this term is was invented by Dutch Mark Kochler. You see the quote from his website. So the essence here is that even rationally calculated two options. This, let's say, is very traditional. You have 4 meters high floor to ceiling, and so if you create, if you compare it to loft format, so we see that any space here in your home, in your office, it will be divided into like the representative space and an auxiliary space. So it is better to divide it according to the functions. Secondly, it's cool. Also, cool means better money, better meaning it sells better, and it adds another 15% of space, actually, square footage. Again, this is about 3 different units. We have created like 3 supposed breaks. 11.7, 15. This is our program. So we have placed it together. So this is the gap. A gap between the 2 staircases can be bigger, can be different, can vary, can play. So there's a variation in order to meet the demands of the buyer. So this is a typical block from staircase to staircase. Very convenient space where blue identifies your optimal unit from top to bottom, from side to side. If you have a typical investor, he can identify the convenient space between the windows, the access, the logistics. He is very autonomous. Whether he would like to take more or integrate with the neighbors, it's absolutely up to him. So it's a very flexible design. So this is this cross section again. You see the shades, in violet. The fact that they're very low, very few amounts of spaces that are not covered by the daylight. So we also use semi-transparent multimedia facades in the area of the head of the building, the public area. And this is the navigation that I have mentioned to you about. This is a plan. This is the piece that is being discussed today, and that's a cross section. So you see everything on the same piece of sheet of presentations. Those are great. A big hole is not going to survive, so it has supports. According to the program, this has to have the IT Academy, like a unit city type of office formats. We need to match. So what is the modern day office? So we were able to find the answer from this table. So these are the comparison of very famous offices listed here. So what do they include? So we have implemented it in our object. We see that even the roof is a very interesting question. So our roofs currently it's uncontrolled. So And the many times the rooftops is filled with engineering construction, and we wanted to implement like smaller vegetation, solar panels, and maybe a stadium or running space, so we save space downstairs. So the key idea here is to create this bar of high technology bar. So, you have Google, you have Apple to compare this. This is like a spaceship that has landed here without any significant footprint on the environment. So there's also school and sports. So between school, the school and the sports facility, there's another passage. So between between offices and the school, this is a sports facility. We shall have the swimming pool and a sports gym, and these are another pictures of other schools that are very applicable for this particular project. It's another view of that gap where we have school, transparent, and the kindergarten and the hotel. So a kindergarten is, of course, we have studied this issue. It has to be like Montessori system where children live in a unified space in more natural conditions. And also another typical super block where you're moving from top to bottom. Another residential block is going to look like this. This is going to have parking, engineering communication lines, and then apartments, storage places, apartments. And we create a lot of different projects for convenient apartments. So I know very little examples of such convenient apartments, and let me explain why. Because the width of the apartment is 4 meters at least. So the space of kitchen, bathroom, and they are almost like 1 square. It's very wide and very convenient living areas, and we're not expanding beyond the marketable sizes, but this is very convenient and very wide and open. So this is our rendering. So finally, this is the shape, the skin of the building. This has to be versatile, semi-transparent. Again, this is the way we see it. We came to the conclusion that this may be the versatile lifting facade, since the beauty of the nature is so great. You both sides, you see the water view, so and greenery, and so you don't have to have balconies, you don't have to have anything, so you just open a window like that, and so there are some blinders that can be both lifting and turning, and it's able to resolve many issues. So I will not tell you about this. Everybody's doing this. Everybody's doing this, but they are not telling you this. Okay, the final master plan, even there are no specific emphasis according to the colors. So the sand, grass, no British grass pads, It was perfect before we came there. It has to stay perfect. So that is our answer. What is the high rise should be? Let's. As the last slide, many people use it, or all of us using it. So this is like a, of course, Savachahirlo is a center of Europe, or universe at least. So yeah, let's see the video.
debate about architecture are quite...
Дякую.
Thank you very much.